Dancers, we can stop. If everyone can stop, thank you so much. That was beautiful. Hello, everybody. It'd be great if you could put your videos on so I can see you. I'm Heidi Latsky. So what you just experienced was on display, our sculpture court that we have been doing since 2015. It started off as a commission from the mayor's office in New York City. And then I had this dream that we should do it all over the world, that people all over the world should join us. And I found out about International Day of Persons with Disabilities, which is a UN conference. And so ever since 2015, we have been doing On Display Global on that day. And it has grown from 2 countries. We were 2 cities actually in 2015, Hobart, Australia, and New York City. And now we're over 30 countries represented. We've done a lot of these sculpture courts, and I'm really so happy that you are all here to ask your questions, because when we do it, it's not like a performance. It's like they're a sculpture court. And when it ends and everybody goes away, and the dancers don't get an opportunity to talk to the audience and vice versa. I just want to say one thing, and then I'm going to turn it over to Meredith. The genesis for On Display was I got a Creative Capital grant in 2009. And I was at one of their retreats, and I showed a video of my piece GIMP, and a museum curator followed me out the door after he saw it, and he said, "I hope you don't mind, but can I speak with you?" And I said, "Of course." And he proceeded to tell me how ashamed he was of his response to this film. And he said, I grew up really appreciating the beauty of sculptures, sculptures that are missing limbs, or, they're all those broken sculptures, to him were very beautiful and were art. And for me, this is kind of an aside, but when I was growing up, I always thought those sculptures were meant to be that way. I never thought of them as old so that they're broken, or like when I would see beautiful tapestries and I loved the colors of the tapestries. And then I found out, many years later, that it was because they were so muted because they were old. And I appreciated everything I saw for what I saw. So he talked to me about his difficulty, his shame at seeing some of the disabled dancers in my video. And I thought, wouldn't it be great to actually do a sculpture court of real people in the Met beside all those sculptures? And that never came to pass. But I sat on it until the mayor's office invited me to do what they like kind of guerrilla art around the city in honor of the 25th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act. So we have been doing it since 2015. And it's the piece that I think keeps giving, because we're doing now a 24-hour Zoom event on December 3rd with people from all over the world. And so I encourage all of you to come and see that. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Meredith, who is a veteran Heidi Latsky dancer who's been with the company quite a long time. So she's done this piece since the beginning. Meredith.
Hi, everybody. My name is Meredith Phages. I am a white woman wearing I guess a sort of a collared, a white dress with a pointy collar, I have an asymmetrical haircut. My hair is curly and brown, and on the left side of my face, I have a magenta streak hair dye, and I use she and hers, she, her, hers for my pronouns. It has been a real joy to be part of this ever-evolving work over the course of the last 5 years. I think about all that's happened in my life in the last 5 years. It's pretty staggering. When we first started in this work, as we were trying to find our way in, I was personally referencing photographs from Richard Avedon. And I usually like to have some sort of framework on which to hinge my either mentality or some imagery. So sort of some extreme fashion poses. And some of that is still at play, but I feel that in many ways over time, the work has softened and has grown ever more nuanced. And as much as I'm interested in the big wild shapes that our bodies can make, when I'm in it and when I'm watching it, I'm much more interested and invested in exploring the space between. I often speak of this as though the different poses that we, the different places we stop in our movement journey could be akin to a photographer's contact sheet. So really, at times, very subtle differences, but those subtle differences, even if they're not premeditated, because they're not, but those different pauses, commas, ellipses along the way all evoke different things for the dancer, I think, as well as for the audience. I've done this piece certainly all over New York, in Greece, but I also had the chance around this time in 2019 to facilitate it myself. And I've been in it much more than I've ever had a chance to see it. And I taught it to a group of high school students at actually the arts magnet school that I attended when I was in high school. So I taught it to these students, and it was staged in an art museum in Norfolk, Virginia. And I was just so proud of and excited for these students to just be able to slow down and to go on the ride and share themselves with me and with their families and their friends. And I know that for me, the experience of being in it has softened the way that I move through the world. Not that I really ever considered myself to be a judgmental person in advance of doing this work. But it has really allowed me to further discover the beauty in unexpected places, which is something that's, that's a mainstay of Heidi Latsky dance. But I'm not judging what I'm seeing, I'm celebrating what I'm seeing. And when I look, my eyes are there for support, for the other person, and that's how I walk down the street. So I think that's how I'll start. This is an opportunity for those of you who may or may not have seen the work, experienced the work either in person or via our Zoom marathon last year. If you all have questions for us, for any of the performers, or if any of the performers would like to speak, I turn it over to you.
You could just raise your hand. Many of the Yeah. Any hands raised? Okay.
I see Marcy Burns.
I mean, I took the workshop or whatever the practice, if you want to call it.
Yeah.
On oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
On Sunday, and I fell in love with it. It changed me. And when viewing, it just shifted me. It was like an epiphany of different times in my life when I found something that was so strong. It's making me cry.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Well, anyway, but when I was watching it, it was interesting because they were spotlighting, and some people use spotlighting, and there was just total stillness. I didn't see any movement, and then at other times I saw movement and into stillness. I don't know what I was going to say, but I expected, because I did that experience on Sunday, to see movement. And so when it was spotlighted, sometimes on a person, you didn't see any movement.
Right.
And then I just let myself go and say, no expectations about looking at movement, and just enjoy what it was. The absolute stillness, and then see someone else that did move and what the choices were. But I also thought it was interesting, the choices, whoever was doing the spotlighting, when they moved to another person. But anyway, I loved it, and I want to do the work. And thank you. I don't know if that wasn't a really good question, but I wanted to share that.
Thank you for contributing your voice. It's wonderful to have you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Hi, Jay Sanders.
Hi, I was so taken with the breath, the feeling breath in other spaces, from isolation to isolation, feeling I'm not alone, feeling it doesn't matter who it is, it matters that there's life and breath, and I love that people are all in white. Somehow the simplifying of presence that way, without color. And it's so interesting because when we think of statues and all those broken pieces, that they were once highly colored in many different places and lost their color over time, but that we now appreciate it even more so because it's simplifying, it's breaking it down to the simplest, strongest lines of the movement of the piece. And I feel the same watching people here. But I think it's especially moving because of this time of separation, this time of through the pandemic, of having been alone, that we care to reach out, we care to see, and that we care to see more. That our differences are beautiful, our differences are the point, and that what we share is the breath. So I don't really have a question, more an observation, but I've really loved watching it before, watch the 24-hour piece and people from all over the world, but seeing this today in this small piece reminds me of why I am so drawn into it. So thank you, Heidi, and thank you, Meredith, and thank you all the dancers.
I think Randy has
their hand raised.
Thank you. I hope it's going to turn into a question. I was very lucky to make a very dear friend last year who led me, and another friend of ours who I think is on this call, to perform on Zoom last year. And it was very, very moving and also very life-changing. And one of the things I was nervous about, because I'm not a professional dancer, I performed a little bit in different places, but definitely not a professional dancer. I was nervous about making a mistake. I was nervous about hitting the key to join and making a mistake right from the beginning. And then I started thinking briefly about Zoom and how, oh my God, two of my very dear friends won't be watching because they're in it, but everybody else is going to be watching. And I got over that pretty quickly and really forgot about it. But I wonder, for the dancers who have performed in person and on Zoom, can you describe a little bit of your consciousness of being watched or not? And my comment is, it's so different to know you're being watched when you're still. It's very different from the feeling you have being watched when you're moving or talking or performing in some other way. So that's my question.
I think, Eve, do you have a comment before you go? Do you want to speak to that? You have to unmute, sweetheart. Lindsay, I don't think I can unmute her myself, can I?
Try it one more time, Eve, just at the bottom left.
How's
There you
that? Yep.
There
Okay.
you go.
So this
Thank
is
you.
an answer to, I'm sorry, I forgot your name, the person who asked the question about how it feels to be watched, who was just there. You kind of forget that you are being watched, I think, in a way, certainly in the house on Zoom, but even outside. I was thinking about that. You know, when people meditate, they close their eyes, but our eyes are open for a lot of it. But it takes you to some other place. And it's quite remarkable because you travel to some place that you really don't ordinarily go or ever go unless you kind of are doing this. So you don't exactly forget that people are watching you, but you don't feel it that way or experience it that way, I think, in a way. It becomes something of its own, a kind of journey or exploration to some other realm.
Agreed. Do any of the other dancers want to speak to this?
Hi, it's Karen. Hi, Karen Peterson in Miami, Karen Peterson Dancers. And actually, we facilitated this twice with Heidi, once in a physical space at Miami-Dade County College. I'm based in Miami-Dade, and I have a physically integrated dance company. And the first time in a physical space, and last year online. So it was totally different for the group of dancers that I was working with. Um, in the physical space, there were like tourists who came up with their cameras. We had a bit of a sign, and I don't know what they didn't know what to make of us, but they were taking photographs. So I have photos of the tourists taking photographs of us. And then last year seemed very for me, it was very isolated because we were it was myself and one other dancer in the studio, and everyone else was online, and it seemed totally different. So I think I love Heidi's process. I love the whole idea of, presenting who we are to the public in sort of a very honest look of who we are, but the physical is definitely different from the online event. Yeah, but we should carry on.
I personally spent my 2 hours when I performed in the Zoom marathon. I was sideways and I had no idea. I was at home by myself in my apartment, and nobody told me until like days later. That's my experience.
I mean, I'd like to say something because Desmond, when we first did it online, it wasn't the 24-hour Zoom event, it was a Disability Unite event. And I remember you saying that you felt so much more vulnerable in your home. Do you remember that? Yeah. I think it is a very isolating experience, but it's meant to be that even when you're out in public, right? Every sculpture is in its own sphere, space, whether it's in a Zoom box or on the street or whatever, but it is a very different feeling. I'll say last year when we did the Zoom event, it was my mother's yahrzeit. It was the anniversary of her death. And so what I did 2 hours. And I remember I put right next to me a picture of her and a candle. And then I did it for 2 hours and I realized I couldn't even accomplish my rule. The rule is that when you're moving, your eyes are closed. When you're still, your eyes are open. And I had been up since, the whole day before. And this was 8 a.m. And every time I opened my eyes, I'd fall asleep. So I had to keep my eyes closed most of the time. But these are the things that you discover as you do it. I mean, maybe you guys can speak to it, dancers, is that I had to make a decision. There are specific rules. When you're moving, your eyes are closed. When you're still, your eyes are open. And I could not accomplish it. So I had to either stop or just do what I could do. Have any of you had that experience? And not that exact experience, but something like it where you just had to surrender to maybe a shift in the rule? Has anybody had to do that? Desmond?
Well, doing it in person obviously is very different. I got a phone call while we were doing it today, and I thought that was going to knock me off of Zoom. So while I was staying there still, I didn't even know if I was on or not. I didn't know if I was being a part of this. But often when we've done it in person, I don't just sit or lay down. I'm usually standing and trying to be as big as possible. And that gets very painful after a while. And so, as much as I'd like to hold some poses for a long time, I physically can't. It's too painful. And just being still is hard for me. I realized doing this piece that I'm a fidgety type of person, which I never realized before.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Rebecca, you want to share?
Sorry.
Can't hear you. Oh,
yeah.
there you are.
Yeah, I was having trouble unmuting for a second. Sorry. So I would say that the physical presence of the audience is very different, especially in different situations. That, like, I remember doing this in a gallery and it got so crowded and people really stopped looking at me after a while because they were really just chatting, and it was an opening and everybody had their drinks. And I was right in the middle of everything. I really did become a sculpture to them. And somebody wheeled over my foot. And in that moment, I had to kind of make this decision, like, am I going to break and kind of show pain? Or am I just going to try to go deeper? And I had this kind of gasp of like, and then I thought, oh no, I broke the rule. And so I just tried to get really silent again, but so there was definitely that challenge, but it also did force me to go a lot deeper, I feel like, when there are people milling around me than if I'm on Zoom, because you have to get really, really deep in yourself to keep holding it. Whereas if you're on Zoom, I feel like I could kind of cheat it a little bit. Like I'm not staring at the computer, but I might be noticing kind of the sounds around me more than I would be if I was like having to block out all of this physical presence around me.
Heidi, do you want to tell the bee sting story?
Oh my. So we were at the American Dance Festival, and it was quite an incredible experience because it was mostly people from there in Durham, North Carolina. And this one teacher at the American Dance Festival told us after the fact that she had gotten stung by a bee during the sculpture court. She didn't move. She got stung. She registered it, and she it was 2 hours long. She very slowly moved her way down to her calf where she got stung and pulled out the stinger, and nobody knew. Nobody saw her do that. Like she literally, there was another woman in that. It was such a beautiful group. One woman spent the whole 2 hours crying. She cried the whole time. So she had tears streaming down her face as she was a sculpture. She never broke. It was quite remarkable. So we have some stories like that. Meredith?
Anybody else have any crazy stories? I do, but anyone else? Nico.
I remember when we did this at the Portrait Gallery in DC, and we were doing the version where there's little breaks of dancing, and we were on this like tile floor, and my toenail got caught between the tile and like ripped halfway off. So my toe was bleeding. And I just remember thinking, okay, just try not to get it on your whites, because then it's going to be really noticeable. So I just kept trying to like keep that toe kind of away from the rest of my body. But it was like really, I mean, it was really challenging because it was like such an open space. So I just really felt like there was nowhere to hide. And it kind of became a game of like, okay, how can I like redirect my focus away from the pain I'm experiencing and like back into the rest of my body. And it's funny, like that is actually, I think, one of my favorite sculpture course that I have done, because when you come up against something like that, it really kind of tests you a little bit, and it makes you go a little deeper than you might normally if you were, you can't let yourself completely wander off because you're spending all of your energy trying to stay in your body. And that's like a really kind of profound experience. Yeah, that was my fun story.
Thank you. Mine was when we were in Athens, and it was about 105 degrees outside, and we were in this red clay pit that was like 3 layers of sort of like a fountain sculpture garden of it itself. And so it was dry. It hadn't rained in a really long time, so it was dusty. Right before we left for the trip, I had gotten laryngitis. I had some strange respiratory situation that was happening. And the first night that we did it, I had a crazy coughing fit in the middle of, I don't remember how long, I don't remember the duration of it, of the entire installation, but it felt like it was going on for 20 minutes. I mean, I was heaving, but I couldn't heave. I had tears streaming down my face. I thought I was going to keel over. And Heidi was standing like 2 people over, just talking the whole time. It was great.
I'm assuming that some of you who've seen this piece before must have questions for the dancers. You're hearing some of their experiences, but do you have any questions about, and there are some people here who want to do this December 3rd. So this is a great opportunity to ask anything.
I'm looking
I have,
for
go ahead, sorry.
Go ahead. No, please.
Oh, I just have a question. For people that have spasms and involuntary movements, how have you experienced this score or performance going through those situations?
Yeah, go ahead. Or do any of the dancers want to speak to that? Or Heidi, would you like to take that? Whichever.
Any dancer want to talk about it? No. I mean, basically what I tell everybody is about the intention of stillness. So if people understand the score, the improvisation, that you are trying to be still, and then you kind of move a little bit and then you're still again, then everything goes.
Yeah.
Everything goes. What does not work is when people, like, I think Nico said it, like, what did you say? Like, if I drop out of the actual rules of the installation, and I just like, I'm all of a sudden like taking care of my nail instead of being the sculpture, that's not so interesting, right? Like, that's what we don't want to do. But yes, if things happen, like if you have to sneeze, or you have, like what Meredith was talking about, coughing. I mean, yeah, if you have a spasm, I mean, that's all okay. It's all okay, as long as the intention of the sculpture court is very clear in everyone's body.
Perfect, love it. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank
you.
Roam, did you have a question? Did you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, it was similar to what Sarah actually just asked. I had brought up in one of the previous meditation sessions about sneezing, that kind of thing. And so I've been thinking about that. And I also have restless limbs syndrome. And so that need to, at certain points, really stretch out some of my joints is profound. And so I'm kind of, I guess, intrigued about what this piece will mean for that, and maybe vice versa. I guess just holding the intention of the stillness is like the key, and maybe for me, like finding new ways or different ways to sit with some of the stuff that comes up throughout the course of our portion of this. So we'll see how it goes. With it's good to hear that there's like all kinds of different things that happen to all different people, and you just kind of deal with it how you deal with it.
I mean, I've seen so many of these sculpture courts, and what makes them interesting is watching those people, what they're going through. It's fascinating to me. It's subtle, right? It's not like they're not exposing it necessarily, but you can get a sense of that effort. And the effort is so interesting to me.
Well, even like the thing that I can't remember now who said it. Maybe it was Meredith. The coughing.
Yeah.
Having this coughing fit sort of come on, and just there was a release of sorts in the tears and so on, and probably temperature heated up, and so there is like something is happening, but it's not completely falling out of the piece.
Right.
Bodies are incredible. Anyways.
For sure. Thank you. Rachel?
Yes, hi. Thank you for this. I'm sort of new to discovering this lovely practice, and I am unable to take the courses, but I want to engage the communities that I teach in. Some are pre-professional college age, some are Parkinson's community, mixed abilities dance classes, and I've just one, curious if that's possible to participate at this sort of late stage. And it just sort of goes a lot with my pre-college. We talk about stillness and witnessing and being seen, being agreed to having somebody watch you. And sort of like Heidi said, the effort of being still. And I think that would be such a beautiful practice. And I'm just wondering if it's still okay to participate and if there's guidance behind how you get people into that zone.
So I've been teaching the last Sunday of every month at 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time and the first Tuesday of every month at noon. I'm at a point now, we don't have a lot more classes left, right? But I'm available to work with a group. So if you have a group and you want me to, you can organize a time and I can come in for like an hour, on Zoom and teach it to them. It's not that hard to teach. It does take practice to get it so that like all the people who come to take these sessions, I keep hearing the ones that come a lot, they keep deepening in the practice. They keep getting new things from it. But I've also taught people 10 minutes before they have to go out there. So you can participate. Anybody can. And if you can't come to the classes that are being offered, you can contact me. It's Heidi at HeidiLatskyDance.org. And we can organize something. Because December 3rd is, it's a month away. We have plenty of time. And especially since it's on Zoom, I would say to push for the Zoom. Then people can come in from their homes, or you could bring people together and they can Zoom in from a space that, together. Lots of possibilities. The idea is to bring everyone together. Like we want as many people to participate as possible, either as audience or as sculptors. And we even ask the audience to join in as sculptors if they want while they're watching.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Because when I watched the video, I saw different communities of people I recognized. I was like, oh, that person participated. It just was so beautiful. How many people that you're reaching. So that's very generous. I will definitely reach out. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It'd be my pleasure. This is not a moneymaker. This is it's grassroots. It's pro bono. It's, we do this. We are growing it, and it's a beautiful time to come together as a global community. And that's what I loved about the Zoom event, right? Because you could see people in Tehran 1 half hour, and then you could go to people in Indonesia and Taiwan, and then Madison, Wisconsin, and it's so incredible to see all these people over the course of 24 hours. So join us if you can.
I'm seeing that we have not so much time left and we've got a bunch of hands. So let's keep going here. Simone, we'd love to hear from you.
Hi, this is my first viewing, and I just have some basic questions. I'm wondering, first of all, how does one process what position and that they choose to be in? That's one question. Then I'm wondering, are there different lengths of time? And then also, is one paying attention to the people around them, or is that part of it as well, or is it more individual?
I can speak to that. Would any of the other dancers like to take that on?
Go ahead, Meredith.
Okay. Usually we have the instruction to choose a starting place. And that's the only thing that is scripted in that sense. We're instructed to hold that first pose as long as possible. And then I, for myself, usually try to use the directive, feel that moment, that urge to change, and let it pass, and take another few deep breaths. And when the next urge to move comes, then I let myself move. The amount of clock time that we have to move is very brief. It actually becomes radically uninteresting when people start noodling for 7 seconds or something, which seems like such a finite amount of time. But in this installation, in this application, it's like light years. So it's a very short time we have to get from sort of one shade to another. Did I answer your questions? I think there was maybe one
and
more.
then is there a relationship?
Oh,
what kind of, are you paying attention to others? Does that inform what you're doing?
In certain versions of it, when sometimes there are little bursts of choreography, and in that case, those relationships, certain people have to pay attention to certain people for either visual or perhaps auditory cues, something like that. But generally speaking, I might be taking in what's around me, the people, the light, the animals, my kid. But I'm not necessarily, I can make the choice to engage with that outside stimulus, or whether it, if it's the viewer or somebody, another performer. And sometimes you find yourself, when you've gotten to the sort of next stop on the journey and you open your eyes, you might find that you're directly having eye contact with someone who's watching you. And there are times when that can feel intensely confrontational. There are times when it just feels quiet and beautiful. But you can also make the choice to close your eyes and go to the next place if you're ready to break that moment.
So I'd like to say something, and then unfortunately we have to bring it to a close. So I'm going to bring, right after I make a little comment. Thank you, Meredith, for that. Lisa Willis, who is our development consultant, will speak a little bit and then we'll end. But I will say that this is a solo journey. So what Meredith is saying is, in your solo journey, you're going to notice what's around you. You have to. But it's really about being very internal. It's not about working as a community. The community happens the best in this sculpture court when everyone is deeply invested in their own journey. And that's when all of a sudden you feel like this sculpture court is actually a community. But we've been in situations like in Greece where they were instructed to kind of really feel each other, and it didn't work. It did not work. So it is very private in a way. So I don't know where Lisa is. I can't see her. That's a great question. Okay. Where are you? I'm trying to find you. There you are.
Hi, Heidi. Hi, everyone. My name's Lisa. I'm a woman of color. I have a dark background. I have on a pink shirt with black dots and a tie at the neck. And I use she, her, hers as my pronouns. So just on behalf of everyone here at Heidi Latsky Dance, I just want to say thank you to all for making the time to be here with us tonight and supporting us. I started working with the company last summer during the height of the pandemic, and the main goal was to work with the company to support its efforts to increase funding for this project. This project is entirely run by volunteers, which is really incredible given the amount of time and work that goes into it. And the fact that we're able to be here counting down to another On Display Global after everything everyone has gone through in these last 18 months is really something worth celebrating. So as Heidi already mentioned, we would love to get to a place where we can support this initiative at the level that it deserves and expand to other communities who want to support it. So I hope that you'll continue helping us spread the word and supporting the project, and we look forward to seeing you on December 3rd. Thank you for joining us tonight, and we wish you all a very good evening.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you all. Where's Amelia? Amelia, you still on? No. Lindsay?